This review of Shovel Knight may contain spoilers and coarse language. If neither of those bother you, then have fun watching this review. Oh great, more retro-inspired crap. That's what I originally thought when I saw a product like Shovel Knight. And can you blame me? Despite the fact that 90% of indie games are total shit, Shovel Knight here seems to be one of the exceptions to the rule. This is a very, very well made and fantastically well designed game. For the most part, that is. Featuring a graphic style that's NES without limitations, and featuring gameplay that's a cross between Mega Man and DuckTales, we've got a pretty impressive game going on here. Retro inspiration certainly shows in its design and in its style. And Shovel Knight certainly comes off as one hell of a nostalgic trip. One of the nicest parts about starting up Shovel Knight here is that you're actually given a lot of options on how you want to play the game. You can play it just like a regular NES game and have up and attack be a way to use items, or you can have an item button itself. But my favorite is that you can make it so that 1 through plus on the keyboard can select a specific relic right for you. And trust me, I would say go with the highest option and have the quick select if you're playing this on PC. Yeah, it might ruin some of the nostalgia for you, but damn does it make the game a lot more impressive, especially just having the relic button. Shovel Knight's plot is incredibly simple. Originally, Shovel Knight was paired with someone else named Shield Knight, but Shield Knight eventually got trapped in a tower that Shovel Knight and her were exploring. Shovel Knight retired to a life of sanctuary, waiting for the day that tower would open up. And it did. And in his absence, an evil knight coalition has risen called the Order of No Quarter, so Shovel Knight has to defeat them and get to the tower and save Shield Knight. Story isn't really that important in a platforming game, but you do get to see some enjoyable dialogue between Shovel Knight and many of his foes that he encounters. It's all written in ye olde English too, so you're gonna have some fun reading a lot of the text. It's not really trying to be exceptionally funny or anything, but it does come off as being like some sort of Shakespeare story, and it's a nice little tone to the story, even though the story isn't really that important. Immediately upon starting Shovel Knight, I ran into some problems. The controls are a bit strange. They're not bad. In fact, I would say that they're the furthest thing from bad, but it takes a while to get used to it because it doesn't follow conventional platformers. Let me explain it like this. When you're in the air, Shovel Knight instantly accelerates in either direction, so he immediately reaches top speed the moment he's in the air. But on the ground, Shovel Knight has an acceleration to his movement. Yeah, can you see where it gets a little confusing? But among that, if you let go of the arrow keys when you're in the air, Shovel Knight instantly stops. So in the air, it kind of plays more like a Mega Man game, but on the floor, it plays more like a Mario and Sonic game. Can you kind of see where it would get a little bit confusing for some people? Oh, you can get used to it. It's not that hard to get used to at all. It's just something that kind of throws you off at the beginning. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We don't really need to dig deeper into the core mechanics of Shovel Knight, because the tutorial stage is what I want to talk about first, and that is very, very well designed. Since Shovel Knight is based off of retro inspiration, it does a lot of things retro video games did. And nowhere is it more evident than the introduction to how Shovel Knight plays. In the tutorial stage for Shovel Knight, you're given an introduction to all of his movesets. So what does that mean? Well, it means you're going to see a lot of two-step design. So in one room you may see like a gimmick, but it's a safe area and you can pretty much keep repeating it, so it's like, oh okay, I get how this works. But then in say the next room, you'll be given a lot more interesting uses of that gimmick. The entire tutorial stage of Shovel Knight is just like that. You're given time to learn about how Shovel Knight moves, controls, and behaves, and then you're given a lot more of the gameplay elements that are commonly seen throughout the entirety of the game. Every level in Shovel Knight is almost following that direct path too. If there's some interesting gimmick that's introduced, it'll teach you it, but then it'll try to see, hey, have you mastered it yet? It's a very unique way to introduce the player on how to use it. But not just unique, it's also good. But you know what's unique and bad? How they handled dying. Probably my main point of criticism, and probably the thing I do not like the most, is how death is handled in Shovel Knight. Oh, unfortunately, Yacht Club Games really dug themselves into a corner with this one. When you die in Shovel Knight, a bunch of bags of money that you've collected over the course of the game appear. Okay. So do you lose like a life or something? No, you have unlimited lives. Oh, okay. Pretty nice, alright. But the problem is, now you have to go back and collect that money. So if you're already having problems going through a stage and you die, now you have to go through the problems of that stage and collect money. All this process really does is just add an extra annoyance to you when you're trying to get through a stage. You could give the argument that collecting money is optional in Shovel Knight, but really, it's a game where getting money is good. Don't you want to get the money? Plus, if you also die trying to get your money back, that money's gone. So then you lose money based on your new death, and then you have to go collect that too. It's just annoying. Collecting all of that money again after you die, and then at the same time, the chance that you could lose it again if you're already at a difficult part is just really annoying. But now you're saying, well, Stolken, you said you could just skip the money, right? Let's just say that if you want to make this game a lot more fun, you're going to have to invest some money that you've made in this game. And it's everywhere. Even just finding relics in Shovel Knight, you need to invest money that you've made in the game. This little piece of shit gets to all of your relics before you, and you have to invest money and keep giving this piece of shit money. I hate you, Chester! I found it first! Give it back! But a lot of the relics in this game do help out, and a lot of them don't. Yeah, there are a lot of relics that are a lot more useful than others. One example is definitely the Phase Locket, which briefly makes Shovel Knight invincible. Yes, invincible, as in you have handheld invincibility. Oh, but you can't. I don't care what you were gonna say. You can spam this motherfucking thing, and it is nuts. And it makes the game very, very easy. Not just because it makes you invincible, but also because it stops your movement entirely. So, if you're about to die and you're waiting for a platform to show up, you can save your ass. You can literally glide with this thing and collect stuff. It is unbelievably broken. A lot of the relics in this game are a lot more situational than the Phase Locket. You can find a use or two for the other ones, but the Phase Locket is just so broken, you pretty much just want to go through the game with it. But don't worry, money isn't just based on what you've seen. You also can get armor upgrades, magic upgrades, health upgrades, and shovel upgrades. The health, magic, and shovel upgrades I have no problems with. They make the game a lot easier, they make the game a lot more fun, and they make the game just a lot less time-consuming in some cases. But the armors I'm a little bit more concerned about. You can switch between armors at will, but the armors work in a way where it's like, hey, here's a benefit for one thing, but then you get a downgrade in this. The only two armors that I can see that are considered upgrades would have to be Final Guard, which makes it so that you lose less money when you die, and the Dynamo Mail, which makes it so that if you do a double hit with your Pogo Shovel, you'll be able to get an instant charge slash out of it. Everything else isn't really something I would bother with. But it's always a little bit more interesting when you get to explore the towns in Shovel Knight. Oh yeah, Shovel Knight has towns. In these towns, you're able to find a lot of interesting people. You can find people who will give you money just for finding music sheets. You find the people that help upgrade you. You can also find a mini-game or sometimes a hidden boss fight in these towns. But in most cases, the towns did a job and most of them are there for just upgrades and getting money. So if you want to get some money, then there you go. Go to the towns. But one thing that Shovel Knight does have that has a lot of character is clearly the Order of No Quarter. These knights are very fun to fight against, and not just because of how good these bosses are, but also just because of how interesting their personalities are, too. So you're fighting enemies like King Knight, and Plague Knight, and Mole Knight. So as you can see, this is clearly like the Mega Man games. The bosses serve as fantastic capstones to end these awesome levels. Even though they're not as hard as I wish they were for my taste, they're still very rewarding and very fun to fight against. I gotta give the guys at Yacht Club Games some credit. These guys really know how to make some fun fights. And not just that, each boss has a unique fight song, which is really, really interesting. Even on the world map, you can run into some extra boss fights, and these boss fights are also pretty fun to fight against, too. And speaking of the world map in Shovel Knight is very similar to Super Mario Bros. 3. So you have some stages to go to, and you have some other extra stages that you can find lying around. But unlike Super Mario Bros. 3, there's only one big map. And you also have to fight all of the bosses before you can proceed to the next areas. To me, the world map doesn't really add that much to the game, but it doesn't really take away that much either. It's just a break in the game, and it's a good retro callback. As stated before, you can actually just run into some enemies and some goodie levels where you can get a lot of money. The world map does do one thing that's great, and it leads to the greatest part about Shovel Knight, its levels. One of the reasons I love video games like Klonoa and Rocket Knight Adventures is that even though those games are pretty linear, every part of the game is just so memorable. And Shovel Knight is just like that. Many parts of the game are memorable, and they always throw new and exciting things at you when you play all these different stages. You won't exactly see two stages with the same gimmick in them, because a lot of the stages are very unique and keep their own flair about them. It really shows some groundbreaking material that they really put into this game. If you screw up when you're platforming in these stages, it is your fault. No matter what, it is you who screwed up. Okay, maybe knockback isn't really your fault, but still. I've had a lot of fun playing through these stages. So much so that on my second playthrough of the game, there really wasn't a level I was worried about revisiting. Well, maybe I shouldn't have said that, because I really didn't like Propeller Knight stage. I just hate wind-blowing gimmicks. It's totally my fault for sucking at them, but god damn it! Fuck wind! Fuck you! You make Wisconsin way colder! But one thing that certainly blew me away presentation-wise would definitely have to be the audio direction. Holy crapola! The music for this game is great. And yes, as you can clearly tell, this game is definitely inspired by 8-bit when it comes to music. And I can dig it. In fact, it can all be played on the original NES, surprisingly. That's pretty impressive. The sound effects are crisp, retro, and great to hear. One thing that caught me off guard was that I actually did get a little bit of nostalgia for these sound effects, despite them being original. How the game did that, I have no idea. The sound effects are retro sounding, and they just sound decent. They sound good for the game, and there's nothing really I could say other than they do the job. But the developers didn't do the job when it came to graphics, because the graphics in this game, pretty impressive. One of the things that Shovel Knight did toad was that it had a retro-inspired look, not that it was. Because there are a lot of things that this game has that a lot of NES games didn't, like parallax scrolling. The animation for these, though, it's good, but I did notice one problem. I only noticed this when it came to the snow levels, but there's one enemy that has an extremely detailed run animation, but then there's just an enemy with 4 frames of animation. It looks like there was a creative fissure. So I'm not sure if there was some sort of art balance that was going on there, but it's just something that I've noticed. In general, however, the animation is fine. It just seems like there's no balance between what's retro and then what's retro-inspired. Oh, but speaking of keen eyes, that's certainly something that I have, because there's quite a few changes I'd like to make to Shovel Knight. One is definitely the lives. Just, you know what? Just have it so that there's one of scavenged around and just have lives, because you know what? That fixes so many problems with the bags. If you want to get casuals into the game or something, make an easy mode. There you go. Next is just the relics. The phase lock, it's fucking overpowered, okay? How many times do I have to emphasize how fucking overpowered this thing is? You can beat the game with just it. Well, I mean, yeah, you can beat the game without any relics at all, but it's like, why would you need anything else if you have the fucking phase lock it? I kinda wish that the armor system worked a little bit more like Mega Man X, so that once you get a part, it's like an upgrade. Same with the shovel works that way, so I kinda wish the armor did too. All of them, just the benefits could have just been upgrades. Maybe a little bit more expensive upgrades, but interchangeable, I don't see the appeal. It seems like it would be a much more efficient system if they just made so you get upgrades for your armor. And yeah, like I said, the animations, just try to keep an eye out on those ones that look a little too complicated. It's not bad, like I said, it's just, you gotta make sure everything matches up, you know? Oh, Shovel Knight, I was worried that you would be a game that could not live up to the hype. But instead, you've proven me wrong. you definitely could live up to the hype. I would definitely have to say that Shovel Knight is definitely, without a doubt, definitely in my top 10 games of 2014. This was a very, very good experience, and I'm so glad I had the pleasure to play it. Even though there are some things that I don't like about it, such as the armor system and the animation, and I definitely don't like how it handled lives, it's still a pretty damn good game. I'd highly recommend that you play it, especially if you're a platformer enthusiast. Wonderful level design, wonderful bosses, not too difficult, and also pretty damn good music. This is definitely a game that you need in your collection, if you haven't put it in there already. This game will certainly satisfy your appetite, and so I say, dig in. But for real, I think they could have at least stuck it to make it so that at least something